What does the 4th of July mean for Native people living on stolen territory? Let's talk about it. Ano ai ke aloha kako, and welcome back to Iola Kalahui, where we talk about what it means to be Kanaka Maoli in today's world. I'm your host, Kekua Kealoha, and I'm so happy to be back. It's been a really busy period for me, so I haven't been around for a bit, but I'm home and I'm here. So before we dive in, remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on TikTok and Instagram for more content just like this, but with a little bit more pizzazz. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rate this show 5 stars. It'll really help more people to find us. And wherever you're tuning in and listening or watching, please leave a comment so that I can connect with you and keep the conversation going. Today's episode is a special one. We're talking about the 4th of July, but not in the way that you might expect. For me, as somebody who is Hapa Haole, part Hawaiian, and part white, this holiday brings up a lot of complicated feelings. I want to share my personal story and our history, and then also some of the challenges that Kanaka Maoli still face today, especially in light of recent events. Real quickly, just some language that you're going to hear. I pretty often interchange Hawaiian, Native Hawaiian, Kanaka Maoli, Kanaka Oiwi, and Kanaka. If I'm saying any of those words, I mean the same thing. I'm talking about Kanaka Hawaii, Hawaiians. Okay, so before we get into the history, let me tell you how I spent this year's 4th of July. I started by going to the gym because, gotta hit those goals, which is maybe just a couple blocks away from Iolani Palace. I'd heard from a friend that they would be heading over there, so I decided to swing by after. And I knew an event was happening, so I figured, why not? I had the chance to listen to some mele aloha aina like mele ai pohaku, which is better known as Kaulana Napua, and Ku'upua Ipaua Kalani sung by the incomparable Kamakakeho Fernandez. I got to listen to some wonderful speakers like Hinale Moana Wangkalu, Kaniela Ing, and a speaker from Hawaii for Palestine. I want to share some videos with you and some reflections from that day. So I'm going to start with Kumuhina, and I want to give you some backstory before I just dive right in. So real quick, she was speaking about the experience of being mahu and about the ways that this identity highlights some pretty stark contrasts between American recognition of trans people and Hawaiian recognition of mahu. So she roots her existence as mahu in her aina nui, her mainland of Hawaii. And Hawaii is the reason that she's unshakable in understanding herself. So let's take a look.
Like everything else in the world, no matter where we go, no matter where we are, whether we are here in our homeland, here in our motherland, whether we are here in our mainland or not, that mainland has to resonate, it has to live, it has to dwell and exist within who? You and I. And so today, my address to all of you is the same words. Our mainland of Hawaii has to live, and not just live, but it has to thrive within you and I.
Eyo.
And as far as Kumuhina's very personal sentiment goes, I used to feel some kind of way about you having to be Kanaka, and I don't subscribe to that anymore, because the truth of our existence here in Hawaii is that we are a minority in our own homeland. And Kanaka, ethnic Kanaka, are going to need as many friends, supporters, and allies as we can get.
What Kumuhina is reminding us to do is to be steadfast. And she later called on all of us to onipa'a. So what she's also doing here, though, is acknowledging the fact that Kanaka are a minority here and inviting people who are not Kanaka to be allies or even co-conspirators in the well-being and the mauliola of this lahui. And to that point, I also want to share another video. This speaker is from Hawaii for Palestine, and I'm so sorry I cannot remember his name, but I hope to hear him speak again sometime, because at this event, he shared something really profound. He's speaking on the condition of Gaza, and he mentioned the shared struggle of living in a colonized space. So let's watch.
But to us, the land is where we come from, and the land is where we will return. So our love for the land should always far exceed our hatred for those who stole it.
Our love for the land should always far exceed our hatred for those who stole it. I think that these are powerful words because it captures an important lesson. The guiding principle should be love for the land, aloha aina, not hatred for those who now occupy it. As Hawaiians, a lot of us feel resentful about our past. I know I have certainly felt that way myself. Now, how was I able to get out of that really negative headspace? Well, it was by rooting myself in kuleana. As a Hawaiian, kuleana speaks to me. I have something that I'm supposed to be doing in service to my community, to myself, and to Lahui. Am I fulfilling it, though? Even Haunani K. Trask reminds us that our culture must be at the core of our resistance. In a famous speech, or in a panel, I believe it was, she said, cultural people have to become political. It's not just that political people like myself have to become cultural. Our culture must be the core of our resistance. I would take that one step further by acknowledging our existence is inherently political. As Hawaiians, all of the things that we love and we care about, and that we stand to lose, are political. Okay, so let me shift gears real quick. I do want to start talking about my own experience and then dive into the history, just like I promised. Growing up Hapa Haole in Hawaii, I've always felt like I'm standing in two worlds. My Hawaiian side never really celebrated the 4th of July for what it really was, and for us it was just another day. Sometimes it was a painful reminder of the things that were lost. But on my Haole side, my white side, things are different. Both of my grandfathers served in the military, my Hawaiian and Haole side. My paternal grandfather, my Papa James Kealoha, was in the Army. And my Grandpa Jack, on my maternal side, he retired as a colonel in the Marines. So he was an officer. And his service is a point of pride for me and for my family. So to say that the 4th of July is a complicated day for me would be a colossal understatement. To really understand why, though, you have to know the history of Hawaii's annexation. In 1893, a group of mostly American businessmen in the sugar and pineapple growers industry, with the help of the American minister to Hawaii and backed by heavily armed U.S. sailors and Marines, overthrew Queen Liliuokalani, the last reigning monarch of the Hawaiian kingdom. They seized almost 2 million acres of crown land. And these men, they called themselves a Committee of Safety, and their ultimate goal was to annex Hawaii to the United States. Now, the Queen wanted to restore power to the monarchy and to give more rights back to her people. But the Committee of Safety and their supporters saw this as a threat to their business interests. So with U.S. military backing them, the Queen eventually surrendered under protest in hopes to avoid bloodshed. After the overthrow, the new government immediately sent envoys to Washington, D.C., seeking a treaty of annexation. Meanwhile, Queen Liliuokalani and her supporters and other aloha aina, they'd sent their own envoys to plead her case. When President Grover Cleveland took over and came into office, he opposed annexation and even tried to restore the Queen, but the new provisional government refused, and they ultimately declared Hawaii as an independent republic instead on July 4th, 1894, the year after the overthrow. What a lot of people don't know outside of Hawaii is that Kanaka Oiwi fought back in a really powerful way, and by organizing. In 1897, when the U.S. was considering annexation, over 21,000 Kanaka Maoli, almost the entire adult population, signed the Kūʻē Petitions to protest annexation. I want to mention here that there were actually two petitions which gathered nearly 39,000 total signatures, but ultimately the one with 21,000 signatures was submitted and became known to history as the Kūʻē Petitions. These petitions were taken to Washington, D.C. to show that the Hawaiian people did not want to become part of the United States. Because of these petitions and the efforts of Hawaiian leaders, the annexation treaty failed in the Senate. But in 1898, during the Spanish-American War, the U.S. Congress passed a joint resolution, which is basically just a shortcut around the normal process, and annexed Hawaii anyway. So if you're wondering why, they did this because they recognized Hawaii's strategic location in the Pacific, particularly as a refueling station. As part of the Spanish-American War was fought in the Philippines, this made a lot of sense. Another note on the refueling piece, during World War II, Hawaii's usefulness as a refueling location inspired the construction of the massive underground fuel storage facility at Red Hill, which is an ongoing environmental crisis that the United States Navy has very poorly managed. After annexation, the United States took control of huge amounts of land that had belonged to the Hawaiian monarchy and to Native Hawaiian families. These were former crown lands which became the ceded lands and kuleana lands. Much of this land was used for plantations, for military bases, and for development, which is why you see so many hotels today. Native Hawaiians were pushed off of ancestral lands, leading to displacement and a loss of connection to place and culture. Today, land in Hawaii is some of the most expensive in the world, and many of us can't even afford to live where our kupuna once did. This land dispossession is at the root of many of the struggles that we face today. Colonialism didn't just take our land, it attacked our language and our culture too. After the overthrow, the Hawaiian language was banned in schools and English became the language of government and business. Generations of Native Hawaiian children grew up without learning our own language. It wasn't until the 1970s that the Hawaiian language really started to make a comeback, and by then, much of it had been lost. The effects of colonialism are still felt today in very real ways. Native Hawaiians, we face poorer health outcomes than the average American. We have higher rates of diabetes, heart disease, and shorter life expectancy. When it comes to education, Native Hawaiian students are less likely to graduate from high school or college when compared to other groups in Hawaii and the US. These problems aren't because Native Hawaiians don't care about health or education. It's because of generations of poverty, discrimination, and lack of access to resources. It's also because we've been indoctrinated to buy into foreign values and morals. These challenges are not just about the past, they're about the present. The longer the American occupation in Hawaii lasts, the more these systemic injustices become entrenched. Native Hawaiians were overrepresented in the prison system, were underrepresented in government, and were often left out of the decisions about our own land and future. The systems put in place by colonial powers continue to shape our lives, making it harder for us to thrive as lahui. And now I want to talk about something that's happening right now. The One Big Beautiful Bill. This bill just passed through Congress and Donald Trump just signed it in a 4th of July ceremony at the White House. But for Native Hawaiians, for Kanaka Maoli, this bill is likely to have serious negative impacts. I don't want to hyperfixate on it, but one observation I need to make is that it's pulling our people into the trap of partisan arguments. Now, it's no secret that I cannot stand Donald Trump. He represents everything reprehensible and arrogant about the United States, in my view, so I am certainly one to fall victim to these traps of partisan arguments. The one thing I will say about the bill, though, and related to this topic, is that this bill really threatens to erode Native Hawaiian rights, whether by opening up more land for development, reducing protections for sacred sites, or undermining our ability to govern ourselves. It's just another example of how federal policy can ignore the voices and the needs of the people that it will affect, especially those of us living on occupied and stolen territory. For us, it feels like history is repeating itself. Decisions made thousands of miles away with little understanding or respect for our culture and our struggles. But our story doesn't end with anger or loss. After all, we are on a journey of reclamation. In the 1970s, something amazing happened, the Hawaiian Renaissance. People started to reclaim our language, our culture, and our sense of identity. Hula, wayfinding, traditional navigation, and Olelo Hawaii, they all made a comeback. Kula Kaiapuni schools started teaching in Olelo Hawaii again, and I'm so proud to say that some of my own ohana were instrumental in bringing about Punana Leo. People began to stand up for their rights and for the protection of sacred spaces, places like Kaho'olawe, Makua Valley, Mauna Kea, and Pohakuloa. The Hawaiian Renaissance stands in sharp contrast to the kind of American patriotism that's celebrated on the 4th of July. While the 4th is about celebrating American independence and freedom, the Hawaiian Renaissance is about reclaiming what was taken, our land, our language, and our identity as people. So every year, when the 4th of July comes around, I feel torn. I want to honor my grandfathers and their service. I want to respect the pride that some of my family have in being American. But I also want to remember my Oiwi ancestors and the history of my people. Being Hapa Haole means I carry both of these histories, both of these realities inside me. It's not always easy, but it's who I am. I am the product of American colonialism. I hope that by sharing this mo'olelo, I can help others understand why the 4th of July is complicated for so many of us. It's not about hating America or being ungrateful. It's about recognizing the truth of our history, honoring our ancestors, and working for a better future for Kanaka Oiwi and for everyone who calls Hawaii home, and especially those who fulfill kuleana here. Mahalo palena ole for listening to Iola Kalahui. If you found this episode meaningful, please hit that button, subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on TikTok and Instagram. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, don't forget to rate this show 5 stars, okay? And wherever you're watching or listening, please leave a comment so I can connect with you and we can keep this conversation going. Iola ka la hui. Until the next time, malama pono, ahui ho kako, ila mai ka i kako pakahi a pauloa. Aloha.